Hi guys, this is Sydney. So right now I'm on here to share something that I'm just gonna intuitively flow with as my spirit team and higher self, source, Gaia, they're all coming in every time I'm on camera in divine timing. So I'll just let it flow. And actually, I was attempting to record a message when I was outside at a cafe today, and it was interesting because every time I turn on the camera, like I start to feel the energy rising up, and then as I was speaking, I saw 444, and before turning on the camera it was 44, and when I just got out of the house it was 144, and I just looked out, it was 77, and then 66 and 888. So I'm being called to mention these numbers for some reason, so take however resonates for you. And previously I was recording a message for 144,000, but right now I'm just going to leave it open. There could be a message for 144,000 light workers specifically, but this is just for anyone who may resonate, who may be drawn to this energy and the message here. So what I'm glad to share is that at this time we are going through a huge learning that is connected to at larger sense remembering who you truly are. That means your essence at this time, as we are in November energy very heavily, learning to integrate the divine masculine within and the divine feminine within that we've been healing from phase to phase, from season to season, with different themes, with the astrological support and cosmic energy support. We've been working on those, right? And then coming to this time in the year of 9, which is the year of 2025 in November, and we are going to integrate all our lessons, meaning our realizations, recognitions, so that we are releasing, shedding what's not who we are. All that's not who we are, meaning conditions, programmings. And what do these conditions and programmings do? They created a lot of limitations, right? A lot of restrictions, a lot of oppressions. Therefore, what did it create? It started to create a lot of frustration, anger, resentment, guilt, shame, hatred, all sorts of things. That is the negative vibration, so-called. And so for the, thousands of years, or I would say hundreds of years, in the experimentation that started in the age of Leo, coming now to the age of Aquarius that we just entered into, we are integrating all of these lessons from all these lifetimes simultaneously right now in this timeline. And all these timelines are simultaneously going on, but you are connecting on a conscious, unconscious, subconscious level. And you don't have to always have a conscious awareness, but it is taking place right now. If you are drawn to this message and resonating for some reason, something's deeply resonating, right? It may be for you. Take however resonates once again. So these energies are integrating at this time so that we could go back to the Prima Mateira state, which is in Hermetic principle, the primordial state. So this message of primordial, or it came as with the energy of dinosaur. I think it really started at the beginning of this year, or like in spring, around springtime, like around March. all this energy of dinosaur, so-called, that is connected to Ice Age, the primordial. And then it was just coming consistently for the past since like 8-9 months. And right now is a very important time, in a way that we are closing all of this integration right now for this part of this huge experiences on Earth. So that's going to be go on. What came from the beginning of this year was like the Christmas time. Christmas this year will be a very important energy. I don't know what's to come yet, but that's what I'm going to mention. That's what I have been receiving, the Christmas time, the end of this year, right? So the rainbow bridge, the rainbow portal, and all of this is connected to this. Going back to the Prima Mateira. So another message that has been coming up was the message of copper. So I started to see the word copper, and it started when I was in Bangkok. So at the end of last year, and then it started to appear more as I went on from time to time. And then when I got to this Lima, Peru, I was guided to buy these copper rings. And I thought it was just had to do with my circulation, because I have like cold feet and cold hands, and I have this like circulation issues with me. So I thought it was to support that, but actually also it had another message for the Ascension, and that came just like a couple of days ago as confirmation. And that I had to like dissect it. I had to like process it for a second and confirm, basically. So throughout this year, what we started was the clearing of the womb, the sacral, which began at the beginning of this year, or the springtime, I would say. Or that time when we are moving from winter to spring. And we were clearing up all these wounds connected to that sacral energies. And that was to activate the creative power within ourselves. And the reason why we needed to activate that is to bring in the fire energies, with the creative force in your sacral, to transmute all these negative lower vibration energies, or like energetic attachments or cords that you are connected to on a soul purpose level at large. Take however resonates. So the sacral element was very much kept hidden, because in the age of the Leo experimentation that started, we were basically humanity was going into the experimentation of the patriarchal society, the centralized power, the power struggles, the control over a lot of the slavery, the theme of slavery, the colonization history, and all of that. And with that, all the divine feminine, or the feminine energies of creativity, the fertility, have been kept hidden or unbalanced or blocked, or however it resonates for you. That we basically lived in the age of lack, age of limitation. I mean, some people could have had a very rich life, or meaning you could have been in a past life, you had your own business, made a lot of money, but there were still issues with the sacral. That's linked. And all these ideas of rich men or men with money or men with status or power had many wives, right? King had many wives. That was the culture. And all these wives, they experience a lot of suffering, right? And jealousies and, you know, so-called cat fights, right? Competing with other women, and also scheming, manipulation to win over the husbands, who's not giving you the attention, love, or care, or if you know that. And also the king suffered, or the man who had many wives, like in a symbolic, literal sense, take however resonates. He also suffered from unable to give and receive love freely, and also feeling unsafe because, you know, he had to pretend, and he knew that all the scheming was going on, but he didn't perhaps say anything because he needed to survive in that environment as well. You know what I mean? So it goes back and forth, that experiment created the divine, you know, feminine wounds, but also it started with the wounded masculine and all these dynamics, basically representing the duality nature of reality that we were experimenting with in history, in humanity. So this duality is represented, one aspect, the dominant or the receptive one as the feminine, the dominant one as the masculine. So another message that came was sulfur. So sulfur represents the masculine energy, the atom. And the copper represents the feminine energy, that is the Eve, the Adam and Eve. And what they represent, it has nothing to do with the Bible, but they're having me connect to that idea of Bible, but that's all been manipulated and rewritten. So those stories, as we now know, has nothing to do with this message, or how I'm describing is what I'm going to also mention in advance to help with anyone's confusions, especially if they're coming from a religious background. In this lifetime, I chose not to have any contacts with religions, from that, like I wasn't born into a religious family or a Christian family, or I never read Bibles. So that was how I chose to remember from the timeline with the Jesus or the Yeshua, in a pure sense, so that I don't have all this knowledge or conditioning or filters. So what I received was that the primordial state, so that represents Adam and Eve, and Adam and Eve represents the very duality experimentation. And before Adam and Eve, there were no separation. And the apple has been coming up as a constant message for the last 6 months, very consistently, very frequently, I would say, as I was also connecting very much with the energy of Yeshua and the original crystals and all that codes and energies when I was in Rio, which started when I was in Manila, Philippines, where it was very heavily conditioned with corrupted religious codes. So that's why I was there, and I had to experience a lot of these conditionings that's rooted in the manipulated ideas of Christ consciousness or Christ energies, or false Christ energies. That is what is coming. So the journey started from that on, especially this part. So that was like spring, I believe, around that time this year. So it just build up, build up, build up. And then I was receiving all these messages and signs. And for some reason, I was speaking and this message wasn't recorded. So I spoke for about 4 minutes, and then I realized that it wasn't recording, and then so I had to like push the button again. So prior to recording this message at home right now, I was outside, and then all these like 3 times I started to speak, there were a lot of energy interferences constantly. So I had to come home. And so I don't know, this feels like this carries a very much of significance in that sense. And especially right now, I just forgot to even record and just speak. So they're interrupting, they're interfering so that I stop speaking or something like that. That's the energy that I'm sensing. And outside there were a lot of negative, sudden interferences that's not mirrored in my subconscious energy from the outside force. So especially when 44,000 light workers, especially right now until the Mercury goes direct in Sagittarius. At this time, we are having the Scorpio Sun, Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, and Lilith in Scorpio. So there are a lot of shadow aspects that are coming up to the surface. Is to wrap up things. That is what I received before when I was outside. It's not just to release something, but at this time, it's more to uncord something. So this is a big ending that you're closing out, whatever that is integrating not just this lifetime, but all these other lifetimes that simultaneously you are bringing an end to, or uncording your energy to. So this Prima Mateira is a big theme or a very important message right now that I've been starting to work with the energy of Yeshua and the original crystal codes that's embedded in our DNA. If you are part of the Emerald, Crystal, Amethyst Order of Rose lineage, especially, take however resonates. So we were to activate it, and that started around the springtime when I was in Manila, Philippines, where it was very heavily. Still, there were a lot of energies of heavy religious conditioning energies there, with false beliefs of like unconditional love. So I had to tap into it. I had to like clear some up. And then when I moved to Hawaii, they had me connect to all the Polynesia ancestors, all these different tribes. And I've been connecting with all these different tribes of Native Americans for the past, especially in the year 2024, very heavily. And then coming into 2025, different indigenous ancestors energies, and then in Polynesia. So that's where I share all these energies and videos and transmissions back then. And I constantly received the message of energy of fertility. And then when I moved to Rio, I started to receive a lot of these heavy messages of Negra Rosa and Negri, all this, which means basically black, which represents the feminine energies, and the black cats and all of that. It started to build up. The momentum started to build up. And there were a lot of other messages and signs and synchronicities every day that I was connected to, guided to, like integrate, meditate, incorporate, process, dissect, and everything, basically, like to confirm in divine timing. So one of it was the copper, message of copper started to come through. Actually, that started to come through at the end of, I believe, like last year sometime. And then when I was in Hawaii, maybe like 5-6 months ago, it started to come again, pop again from time to time. And when I got to Peru, like Lima, Peru here, I was guided to buy copper rings. And I didn't really think much of it. I thought it was to support my like blood circulation and stuff like that. But it came later as confirmation, representing the activation of the divine feminine energies. And in Hermetic principles, when you look at it, it came as a message, the Prima Mateira, that the sulfur is represented as the masculine and the Mercury represented as the feminine energies. And what's coming is energy of Virgo, the Mother Mary, the Virgin Mary. So the sulfur, I believe, is number 16 in the elemental chart, and it has the yellow. So it also represents like the energy of the yang or the sun, and this one is yin, the energy of that. So is the giving and the receiving, right? The separation. Before we didn't have the separation, and this giving and the receiving, this idea or the concept or the separation is the basis of idea of manifestation. Without this separated masculine and the feminine energy, there wouldn't be any idea of manifestation. And we are here on a physical reality, so that's why manifestation plays a big space or takes up a big space in our day-to-day lives, and importance in that sense in our day-to-day continuation with this experimentation on a human level at this time on a physical reality that is, ascending. So basically manifest again is many means hands, fast means festival like fiesta in Spanish, partying, celebration, many means hands. So it basically means celebrating what you create with your own hands, these two hands representing the duality. So one that is the dominant for you, whether it's the right hand or the left hand, representing your masculine energy, the other one representing the feminine energy. So the basic idea that came was this is where the idea of alchemy comes from. The alchemical process or the philosopher's stone that's coming up as an important theme that came probably like throughout the mid this year, not from the beginning, but just it started to come through. But before that, it was more of the alchemy, and I was connecting very heavily with Merlin and King Arthur and all of that energy. And then it came as an idea of philosopher's stone with the alchemical process. So that goes back to the Prima Mateira, the energy of these two different elements that represents the masculine and the feminine, that is the very duality. And the apple that created the temptation is like a symbolic meaning of this separation of these unified energies coming into two. And we go into separate experimentation, right? You experience yourself as a male or female energies, or like sometimes on purpose you have a masculine outlook. You are born as a male, but you hold a lot of the feminine energies and a so-called, heterosexual relationship, homosexual relationship, or however it is. So all this was very much limited and hidden, but now it's all coming up to the fore, right? Before, when we even look at like 1950s and 60s, it was shushed. And then 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, now so much more open. So that's where we're moving into slowly, right? You see the evolution when we do it in that sense. So when it comes to like hundreds years back, thousands years back, there were a lot of things that were kept hidden, oppressed and suppressed and limited, and that was the experimentation of the duality, the separation. And the separation, when it was separate, and we are going back to this primordial energy just when it's separated is what is coming. This integration that is taking place, however it resonates, is to remember or take our energy back to the remembrance. That's why the energy of purification has been a consistent theme this year or throughout this year, very intensely. So the purifying your soul, your ego, your heart space, your mental space, your even physical space, meaning you needed to clean up your diet or clean up your physical space, as it's all interrelated. So for example, if you have a lot of parasites in your brain or in your gut, you will start to have issues creating the blockage of the energy flow. And in this physical reality, this physical body is very important because it's a life vessel that keeps you in continuation of this experimentation. So if the body dies, you got to leave. But if you have a mission, you got to keep your body sacred in order to keep on with this mission until it's meant to be over. So that is coming as a very strong message for anyone resonating, especially the 144,000 or light workers, however you resonate. So right now we are separating, we are in separation of these two, but we are going back not to this unified energy before this separation, very separation in the first place, but we are going back to this very first stage of separation. You see the difference? And we are going back to it because we need to manifest in a different ways what is coming for the new earth. And before coming to now, we had a lot of information, right? There were a lot of self-development ideas like conditionings and subconscious programming and how to manifest, and all this knowledge and information was based on a level of consciousness that was available for Earth at that time. So what I saw was when I was meditating and integrating these energies and information just earlier today, what I saw was all these energies had been used as another manipulation tools for power, control, and dominance over. So this energy is very much present and existing in the business world. As of now, we are speaking still, and it was much more before. And this business world, meaning since the age of Rockefeller is what is coming, the Rockefeller age, meaning the age of the contamination into capitalistic society and all these conditionings and contamination in the nature to remain in control or the dominance over the greater population or the entire world. And as a lot of people are aware, few household names, they are in operation of the most of these, the world as we are speaking now. So there are a lot of hidden societies and stuff like that, right? So the very thing they contaminated was water, right? They incorporated a lot of the harmful chemicals, and with the misguided idea that it is to clean up the water, but actually it was to contaminate our blood vessels because our body is made up of 70% water basically. So they knew all of this information because they had the script of the original information, and they were using that to manipulate everything else. So right now we are to go back to, from all these sources and conditions and atmospheres that we are living in, that's consecrating the energy of dis-ease, which is the disease, right, or the sickness. Now we are moving back to the state of ease and relaxation, state of peace, state of joy and playfulness that is connected to the innocence of the heart. And the idea of innocence has also been contaminated as somewhat of naivety or weakness that someone could manipulate and or exploit. But actually the innocence holds a lot of the wisdom and very much balanced divine power within. So at this time, we are, exposed to a lot of young star seeds who come as more of carrying all these memories and information already. So they're on social media. They talk like adults, they act like adults in a 6-year body or a 5-year body, is because that's their purpose. That's to activate a higher consciousness. The innocence is not a weakness or something to be manipulated. That is the purity. And in the age of duality experimentation, when you were pure, you weren't able to survive very well. That was the game, or the experimentation was. If you remain pure, true to yourself, spoke your truth, you were beheaded right away by the authority figures, because you needed to follow the rules and conform, and if you didn't, and so we lived in a lot of fear, anxiety, stress, and all of that, not to mention constant wars and stuff like that, right? So going back to the Prima Mateira, the sulfur and the mercury, that is the pre-metallic stage, which represents the idea of manifestation or the physicality of something. So these elements, before it becomes metallic. So that process is called alchemical process, or philosopher's stone, was what I received as a message. And all these messages that have been coming for months or throughout this year that I needed to constantly meditate on, process, and integrate, it's now coming for me to share in this divine timing in November, is what I'm going to share. So the reason why we are being called to go back to it is I was constantly stressing throughout this year about the purification, the purifying the heart, purifying this, purifying that, so that we are not creating out of ego, simply. A lot of these so-called self-help, self-development, a lot of it has been how can I say, became a tool for power. So there were a lot of but that was the energy that was needed, and it helped a lot of people in a sense, because they needed to transform negativity, and that was the main focus, or so to speak, like Tony Robbins kind of stuff, which I had been studying for decades in this lifetime. Before the spiritual awakening, I was studying all this, reading these books and studying and constantly for decades, I would say, and working on, I thought that was the way to work on myself, to program. But the idea of programming and conditioning and priming, it's called priming, it's been mishandled, is what I'm going to share. So a lot of the business people use this tactics and knowledge to prime someone's mind, which was implemented in marketing and all this media, and it's all called propaganda, right? And they only associate the idea of propaganda in like the communist whatever, that theology, but actually they just use different words. But that's what's been happening. And so now we need to purify all of these energies. Is even the idea of manifestation, this has been connected to excessive material idea of abundance. So that when we go back, we are to live in the energy of abundance, but that idea of abundance needs to be also elevated to a higher level of consciousness, where we need to open our perspectives or expand our perspective or look at it from a different angle to understand that, and really embody it and make it your own, that you start to live that abundance is not just material. Abundance is not just money, but there are so many other things that we forgot. So when I That started with when I was in Hawaii. They had me connect to a lot of the Polynesian ancestors, which I was connecting with. And now when I arrived in Peru, Lima, all these so-called Andean tribes, the Inca, the culture of the Inca started to come through very heavily, and I was guided to connect with their energies through symbols and signs and a lot of different things, especially foods as well, because all the foods here are from this land, and there's this different energies in particular areas and regional locations around the world. And when you harvest something, it contains the energy of that particular region. So I was receiving and downloading information through food sources as well, and all of that. And it is to help us to go back to the Prima Mateira once again, to purity of the essence, where when you are, let's say you are craving this mango fruit from a mango tree in front of you as you're just walking by, you're thirsty or you're craving some food, and before you take it right away, which is what we do now, you ask the tree. You ask the tree whether it will allow this fruit to be incorporated into my physical body. So that's still happening in some parts in Mexico, in the countryside with local tribes. They still live it this way. They ask the tree for certain leaves to make some food and stuff like that. And that's just part of how they're living, and that's been handed down from one generation to the next. So we are remembering that way, which is required for the new earth energy and the level of consciousness that we needed to go into. And so right now you're asking, and then the tree responds, because everything is connected. And right now we don't believe the tree can communicate with you or the birds can communicate with you. We don't believe that. And people are going to be saying, prove to me scientifically, which has been the conditioning of the mind, right? They emphasize a lot of the science is more important, and there's a lot of debate and stuff like that, right? So we are going back to all these times before that. So the forgotten history or the hidden history of Atlantis and Lemuria and all this are coming up as well, which we've been connecting heavily as we were just before this integration. Lemuria, for about the summertime, 888 portal onwards, and then before the Atlantis. Now coming into the integration period, and then we ask the tree, and then tree, you will notice suddenly the food drops, boom. And we think that right now it's just accidental, or the wind, something happened, because we don't believe it. There's no physical proof. We're not going to believe it, right? This is the reality now, or the level of consciousness, I would say. But going back to that civilizations or the wisdom that we were connecting to nature and living harmoniously with nature, before we contaminated, before we started to exploit for power over or control over, dominance over. So we are asking the tree, and then the tree speaks, and then we receive in balance. And when we receive, what do? We say, thank you. Thank you for providing this that I need at this moment. So that's the very idea, or the different angle of abundance that's going to take people into another level of consciousness, a higher level of consciousness, that the idea of abundance is that you're going to receive everything and anything that you need in the moment that you need it, when you are in alignment with the cosmos, meaning in unity. So you treat everything else in the namaste state, which means My soul who honors mine sees the soul in you that honors yours, and therefore my soul honors your soul. That is the respect, honoring. And then with that, we appreciate, which is the basic idea of abundance. So when you are remaining grateful, you are aligned with the cosmic energy of unity or oneness, that there's no separation. And the separation is experimentation of lack and limitation. So when you are in that aligned with the state of unity or oneness, lack or limitation does not exist, because chasing represents lack. But all of the systems and how we live, what we think, and the way we are taught to live were based on chasing, to prove, to perform at this time. So we are remembering that, or going back, returning back to realigning, realignment. They're integrating these aspects that we healed, that we brought a lot of shadow to the surface, basically. The healing is basically that, shedding light onto your shadow so it reveals what they are. But a lot of people are still in the fear state. They run away. They're like, no, I don't want to deal with this shit. I don't want to look at my shadow, and this is not mine, whatever that is. And so though, for those who are courageous enough, strong enough to face these things, and then recognize something within, and then releasing, purifying, transforming. That's what's been happening, especially since 2023. And more intensely from the beginning, from the end of 2024. Around autumn time is what is coming right now, energetically. So we've been doing all of this, now integrating. I've healed and this healing also served the purpose, or had a purpose, of you uncording. It was a process of uncording, but you needed to release a lot of these energies in order for you to remove all this subconscious limiting beliefs that created all this lack and limitation assumptions, that created a lot of these energies of shame, guilt, hatred, fear, self-doubt, and all of that. And the more you held it, the more you were connected or attracting or mirroring these energies who with the individuals who held the same. So that's the karmic ties, right? They mirror your energy, and they can attach to you. But once you remove all of that, there's no same resonance or the vibration that is matching. So even though they're trying, they can't. You're now a different energy. You see what I mean? So that's why we needed to constantly look into subconscious beliefs, or any past energies coming back, or memories coming back. This had to do with this subconscious purification, or the clearing. And right now, there's a lot of scorpionic energies that's going on in November, with all this, a lot of major planets in retrograde are just purging. Like I would say we went through a lot of different stages of purging throughout the year, especially looking into last 2 years, especially the past 12 months. But this time is like on another level, is what I'm going to share, because we cleaned a lot of stuff, but there are a lot of more. So you needed to go deeper and deeper and deeper. You see what I mean? So this purging is really like going deep, and then it is to bring all of that out, all these past energies out, the karmic ties out, so that which I've been mentioning constantly, the unifying with your soul family, or your like divine counterparts, that idea so-called, needed to take place. And in order for that to take place, that process needed to be done. And so depending on individuals' unique season, in their unique journey, you know, that's what is going to unfold. And I mentioned that not necessarily, sometimes it just could be energetic. It may not be like a physical meeting or a uniting sense. It's all with a unit for purpose. And the idea that the purpose behind me sharing that was to elevate the consciousness, because that idea of union, or that also had been anchored in that different lower level of consciousness that just carried on. So you could still be connected to someone on an energetic level, and it's serving each other. So basically all these relationships that we have is to serve each other in some way, to help each other realize something, to be light, or to be lighter, meaning to go back to who you really are. That is the essence, that is the light. So the more you find yourself, the more you get to know who you are, the more you remember who you are, you become lighter and lighter and lighter. And that's like in a symbolic, literal sense, because energetically, all these energies that was stored even in your cellular level are being removed. That's where the Palladian surge energies is supporting right now, that I mentioned in the previous, I would say, latest video and 2 ago, that at this time the Palladian, the source energy coming through the Pallades, these energies to flush out all of these negativity energies that's been ingrained on a cellular level, on a mental, emotional, physical, to be flushed out. So we level up to a completely different level. And that this physical body is also going to shift as well. As you are taking up more light, a lot of people will start to eat less, because they will feel less drawn to use that signal of hunger as the conditioning, as I need to eat more, and the food that gave you comfort, the idea of comfort and safety. And they use this in the Rockefeller age, especially so-called, is just coming as a symbolic sense, that all these ideas of mukbang and all this, they are commercializing mukbang worldwide for a purpose. And that idea of mukbang didn't start it out that way, but now it's been contaminated. And also a lot of these eating cultures and all these foods, manufactured foods and chemicals infused in our day-to-day foods and snacks and processed foods, and all of it were to create this addiction. So that's why the babies, when they taste sugar, when they're not supposed to, they go nuts, they go crazy, they cry in frustration, they get angry because they're addicted now. And when their parents say, no, you cannot have your candy, then they go mad, and or they need to suppress. So that's how we also accrue karma, or suppress emotions and store that emotion, that you cannot do whatever you want, or you are not at your own free will. And what came also a few days ago was like this marshmallow, I believe it's the name, experiment with kids, with babies, that the parents come in, where they have their like kids' favorite chocolates or candies, or you know, like the sweets basically, and then they tell the kid that I'm gonna go away, but you can only eat this if you wait until I come back. You're going to have the second one or more. And then they do this in Korea as well, in a lot of the TV shows with children, as like testing a child's patience level. And where does the patience comes? The idea of patience comes from the idea of waiting, meaning waiting for the future, waiting for a reward, waiting for a go sign that's not from inside but from the outside. So they need to wait And then if they wait, listen to their parents, then they're like, yay, they get their reward. It's another conditioning method. It's a conformity method. If you listen to authority, you will get your reward and plus bonus. If you listen to what I tell you to do, you're going to get an extra reward. That's basically the system that we live in at work, the bonus system. Salary plus bonus, or whatever that is, stock options. If you stay and perform, then you're going to get more reward. That is the money and blah, 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 and all that stuff like that, that idea, right? So a lot of these still habits, cultures, and these things have been rooted in that old level of consciousness that we need to purify and also elevate together. And so it takes me to share this documentary that I saw when I was about 18 or 19. So at the time, I watched a lot of documentaries. I was really into documentaries at the time. It was for a purpose. I accumulated a lot of knowledge and information. That's for now. And during those times, one of it was about this native tribe in Indonesia. And that I was so impressed at the time that there was this tribe and they harvested food all together, this community of tribe, and they shared the food all together and they ate the food all together at the same time, the entire community. People of like 30, 40, or 50 or something like that, this tribe. And everything was done together, like in a community level. And what was interesting was all these little children were together in a group, and the adults were cooking the food. And after it was done, they were distributing. But the kids were they were not crying, they were just smiling, doing their thing. And when I tapped, even then I was tapping into, and then my psychic abilities were, very much on, but there were a lot of shadows that I took on. So it was not as like, I would say, readily coming to me, But intuitively, I was tuning in and I was like, they're not crying, and the energy was not that they were waiting. They were just there. And because they never experienced feeling left out. They never experienced that energy. They never, it was never failed to deliver this equal amount to all these people, all these children, or these babies. And so what they expect and they assume is that they will receive no matter what. So there were no worries, anxieties, stress, or no need to be patient. They're just present. So that's the wisdom of these native tribes. It's just an example, right? So they never experienced that insecurity, unsafety. Everything they needed was provided in time. And so there was no like, oh my God, like, what if it runs out? What if that kid gets all or more, or I want to secure more, so I take more portion, even though there are a lot of people left that needs to be fed. Nothing, none of that thought coming or kicking in, or these energies. So that's where, it's just an example that I'm guided to share, that we're tapping into the Inca or this native Andean tribes. The wisdom of that, the living harmonious with nature, is coming back again, has to do with the fertility of our sacral chakra. The sacral chakra, the sexual energy, which represents the creative power or the creative energy, has been in a way sexualized, meaning it's contaminated with a lot of ideas of pornos and ideas of sex and one-night stands or casual sex and all this partying culture, right? that started to develop in US, that started to spread, you know, throughout media as a sign of liberation or idea of freedom, but actually it was to suppress even more because it's blocked. Like over sexual activity, sexualizing someone, that idea in your mind is been programmed with a lot of these codes of like pornography or this TV shows and music and movies that we were exposed to ever since we were a child on a subconscious level. So all of a sudden you're just having these ideas, and that's very dark, lower vibrational energies. So we were not using this creative power freely, this fertile ground that is the negri or the negra or the negra rosa is what is coming. That's feminine energies. And the feminine energies also hold a lot of that power to get into the shadow, to transmute, but that has been suppressed with the idea of witchcraft and all of that, right? What is coming is like this novel Scarlet Letter and all of that, right? Over many different cultures, these energies have been sacrificed to worship something else, like a god or something, worship the sun or worship this and that, also created a lot of these energies. So all this idea, thought, they're all energies. And once again, they have me mention the moving or the transition from the golden age of Atlantis to the corrupted. The start of the corruption of Atlantis began with a single thought from a high priest at the time, that what if that little seed, what if I use this to blah, and that single seed, boom, 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 started to spread. It was a seed. So we don't think that our thoughts and our emotions are not going around. It does, and that comes as the karmic energy, or the idea of karma. What goes around comes around, right? What you put out, you receive in return. So if you put out a lot of negativity towards someone because you believe that you are exempt from it, it's to come back to the person who did. Basically, that's the idea, right? And the more harm it does to someone else, it's coming back as the bigger lesson. So it's all basically your creation you got to deal with. So that's why the ownership is a big thing, and releasing negativity is a big thing, and looking into the energy of judgments within yourself is a big thing, which we cannot escape at this time because we've been conditioned for centuries. So the more you clear, the more you are releasing, you're going to shine your light, or remember who you are, that is unconditional, which we call love. So who you are is love, basically. Who you are is light. It's that idea. You know what I mean? In extension or in connection to it. So right now we are learning to, going into the Philosopher's Stone, creating, turning something into gold as that symbol, right? And that basic alchemical process of turning these elements, raw elements of sulfur and mercury, and creating a metal out of it as a physical manifestation is very basic idea of that we can relate to on a day-to-day. At this point is cooking. You have a lot of these ingredients, you put it together, you mix salt, pepper, oil, vegetables, meat, whatever, if you're a meat eater, right? Everything, fruits, and then you have something else. That is a physical manifestation, what you needed, what you wanted. You're craving chocolate cake. So you what? Bought eggs, butter, like in a traditional sense, right? Flour, salt, you need water, I don't know, whatever, chocolate, all from where? Where are they coming from? Are they coming from scientific lab? Factory? No, it's coming from earth. The very element, the very Prima Mateira. But these, so we are going back to nature, the earth, connecting with earth, and then bringing this and you mix it, you bake it, meaning you use what? Fire, right? And to fire it up, what do we need? We need air. And to create fire, we also need wood, like all these different elements. It's all alchemical process. And we are remembering the purified state of these ideas. You see what I mean? The primordial state. So that's what we are doing. This process that is taking place is to help us get there. We are not going to be completely there after November, but that's what they had me continuously receive and integrate for me to share at this time. That is also for where we're heading. So it's like a heads up for people who are going to resonate, people who have done a level of work, right? So this represents what? No longer the outer telling you who you are, but you remembering who you are. You see what I mean? The shift is from the outside to the inside. So it has to do with inner transformation. The outer transformation, we were taught that it needed to be from something outside, but actually it was misguided teachings for manipulation purposes. And we are remembering as we purify, oh, actually the inner transformation, when I transform inside, everything else transforms outside. When I purify inside, everything around starts to come as purified source of energy, like people. If you hold love, if you start to genuinely start to love yourself, start to look at yourself. I love myself. I love how I am. I love my personality, whatever that is. Like you genuinely can say it, then you will start to attract different people or individuals who come and hold the same vibration. You see what I mean? Just like in a relationship, when you were suffering with a lot of self-worth issues, right? Or pleasing tendencies and low self-esteem, which perhaps we all went through to a different degree in a unique level, right? You start to attract relationships that's not going to make you feel content. Something is not satisfactory. You're not going to be completely happy. There's something always to complain about, not be happy with, but you just compromise or whatever. That's creating the idea of codependency. That's all out of lack. And this lack is from this assumption that you're not enough, basically. So it's all, everything is tied. I'm just describing as I'm going, but that's how it is right now. And so now we are learning to use the alchemical process from the inside and doing this purification now. So when we do it, it's not from a force, it's not from an egoic desire or ambition or greed. It's not from the place of wanting power, status, and more for oneself, but it's with an intention that is purified, that is with what? With the highest good of all. But at this time, if you're of service to something, if you're always giving, what happens? In this reality, is likely to be exploited because of the duality energies that's available everywhere. Duality fights, duality competes, compares. For what? For survival in a lot of these experimentations of realities, right? So if they see something as giving, generous, kind, they want it more for myself. You want it for yourself. You want that resource, or you want that source of this energy that you don't realize that you lack within. That's why you're perhaps being attracted to that. And you want to start exploiting because you want to secure that energy to create this false sense of security within yourself. But it has to be from yourself. The source needs to be within. That's the basic idea of inner transformation. You need to realize that you are the source of everything. You see what I mean? That alchemy of the divine feminine, divine masculine energies within. If they're wounded, holding a lot of these lower vibrations, that's what is going to constantly create and experience. So, and that is the manifestation, your manifestation. Okay, I'm just going to ask the spirit, what else? What else? So right now, at this time, especially until we have the Mercury going direct at the end of this month, there are going to be a lot of energies, the shadow aspects that you need to perhaps purge out big time, or uncord big time, meaning what's coming is releasing the past altogether. Whatever that past is in this lifetime or in other lifetimes. All these wounds, energies connected to the past, or that idea of past in this linear timeline sense. You are to release whatever that's left that may come in a very unique theme and energies, but it's all to basically ultimately open your heart up and allow yourself to feel safe and secure, at peace. So the root chakra energy is coming on as very important, or very much of like the major grounding theme right now, to anchor down that you are safe, you are secure. And they also want me to highlight that affirmations are not meditations. Affirmations are tools. And a lot of people, it's been commercialized or misguided as well, that you use affirmations or primings. It works for a short period of time on a subliminal level, but in order for you to completely, fully inner transform yourself, you need to use consciousness, meaning your own consciousness, not someone else's. So basically you hold the key to unlock everything. You can have a lot of supports as tools, but the source has to be you. The resource has to be you, is what is coming. That's the basic idea of inner transformation. The Prima, Prima Mateira. Once again, going back to the pure state of these elements before the manifestation process, or the alchemical process, or this metallization or metallic physical gold, these elements. We are going into that elemental state. So that's the purifying process right now. And we are integrating these duality aspects as a big journey of this purifying or this alchemical, which is connected to the rainbow bridge. The rainbow bridge. So what I also received as confirmation was we were building the arc, especially the 144,000 light workers. So personally, they want me to share. I started to receive the message of arc start to come through in 2023. So the Moses started to come through at the beginning of 2023, and then a few months later, I started to receive the message arc constantly, and that was to build the arc. And I was to build the arc so that help people to walk on water. Basically, that was the message that I've been receiving. But to walk on water, you need to develop faith and trust. And with that faith and trust, when you walk on water, you go to the ark and you move to the new earth. So that's basically the idea of rainbow bridge. Rainbow representing the 7 different colors, representing the 7 different chakras, meaning inner transformation of all your chakras, aligning your chakras in balance. You see what I mean? That's also connected to the divine masculine, divine feminine energies in balance. So dancing in balance, alignment. So everything is interconnected. So I'm just called to describe all this thing in grand sense for some reason today. So this bridge. So that's where a lot of people perhaps may have start to feel a lot of extreme triggers from jobs or relationships, or going through like real depression, or that feelings of depression out of stress, whatever the situation you were in uniquely, which started to build up from majorly in 2021 is what I'm going to share, and then it started to push people into pain more and more. For those people who didn't look into them or go in for inner transformation, they were experiencing more hardship or this challenging aspects on an emotional, mental, physical level. And then they were pushed to the extreme as the earth energy was shifting majorly from 2022 to 2023. And 2023 started to peak. The energy started to peak, the Gaia's energy. And like 2024, another level. 2025, another level. Because it needed to go into, that was what it needed to be done. So as this energy was peaking, this increasing light was shedding more light onto their shadows, so they have no place but to face these things that are coming up constantly. But a lot of souls went back to their old ways after they were feeling relieved or found a quick solution through therapy or something else. And they were just repeating the same cycle. And it's coming to me as they're still suffering, and the suffering is ongoing. But there are still choices to be made, but it's all up to an individual. The opportunity for them to go into go through that inner transformation is still available, but it is up to them. But that major arc, the people onto that new arc has been building up. And that's where, like, I remember at sometime this year, about couple of months ago or something, like I shared, I think when I was in Rio, that we crossed the bridge, this first group of people, we crossed the bridge. And before that, we were in the middle of the bridge crossing. That was what I shared, I believe, when I was in like Hawaii or some time ago. And then when I was in Rio, we crossed the bridge, and we are now at this period where it's still like taking place now in Lima, Peru. So we are at this integration period where shared as a symbology that you just got out of the train that took you here, and you're here at this, you're stationed, but you're not stuck. That's the idea. That's where a lot of these ideas of grounding and staying present came in, which I shared in a lot of these shorts videos and different elements and aspects. So all these shorts videos are with the hidden codes and messages for higher consciousness, to activate the higher consciousness, that is the co-creation with the divine. So it's and the new train, we know that it is coming, but we don't see it yet. That's the place that we are in. We are in the station, but if you're not stationary, unmoving, doesn't mean you're like stagnant or stuck. That you don't see, you're not seeing the new train coming in to hop on, doesn't mean it's not coming. Is another message for someone who may resonate. For those of you who cross the bridge is what I'm going to share. So, and you will know, okay? So that's the energy right now. And I don't know like where we are, where it's going to be leading us. Another thing is that they want me to mention is that from the year 2026, the energy going to be speeding up really, really quickly, especially 2026. It's going to be a very much fire air energy, especially with in Chinese reading. It's the year of the horse with the year of the sun, the energy of the sun. And that's both fire elements, extreme fire, extreme heat. So that's going to be like the horsepower, like the full engine, like the speed, like kind of speed racing. The engine of the speed racer car is what is coming. Boom, boom, you know, like that kind of energy. That's the energy of 2026, like propelling into a whole different stage or another cycle or another phase, going near towards the ascension or the new earth, however you resonate. So it's going to be very air, fire dominant. So another thing is, if you look at your chart, it's this Chinese reading is a little bit different from astrology reading. When I compared it on my own, it's like the air elements in the astrology, Western astrology, comes more as the fire elements. It was interesting. And so a little bit different how it's being read, but it's more that connection, air and fire. So if you have a lot of heat in your body, if you have a lot of fire elements in your chart, you may need extra earth energy to ground it. That's the, like in Chinese, that reading chart, basically, it's like the fire is a beneficial element to the wood, is the beneficial element for the fire, because the fire burns the wood and it becomes the earth, or the earth elements. And for people who have a lot of fire, if you have a lot of fire and then the ear is going to be the fire energy, you're going to be like extreme, you may experience extreme impatience, frustration, or anger. All of these things may come out for individuals who hold that energy, but it's all for a divine purpose and design that you needed to release or balance out. You need to learn how to balance out your energies. So in that case, you may want to incorporate more grounding practices, or gardening, or going into nature, or more practicing in exercises like yoga, or meditation and stuff like that, to ground your energy. And even like cooking and could help you, right? Something of that nature. If you were lacking in these elements, you may be supported with more of this energy, helping you in balanced state, but still a lot of earth elements you need to bring in order to balance out or stay balanced in this fast moving paced energies, is what is coming for me. So before we move into that, we are integrating everything. We are solidifying it and rooting it down in our root chakra. You feel safe, secure, and stable within yourself. So with all this like energies that may going on, and also in society on all levels, like it may burn things up, like all these things, natural disasters or things collapsing, or all these different changes going on. It could be representing as like different changes, fast-paced changes, you know, movements. We need to adapt to all these changes or discomforts. So in order for you to not get swept up and shaken this way, that way, this year was the year of releasing and then what? Rooting down like a tree. The deeper the roots, you stand still and firm, less shaken like this. But when the wind hits, you need to stay balanced with flexibility, adapting to change so that you don't just stand still and then you break. You need to move with it, along with. That's where we were working with the divine feminine energy of flow. You see, you need to flow with the move with the currents, because change is the only constant. It's changing all the time. So there are a lot of different elements. There are a lot of things that I want to share, but this is what is coming for me to share at this time, thus far. Okay. Anything else that you want me to share for the collective? So for the next week, continue to stay rooted in your presence. And stay in your energy, as there are a lot of disruptions, interferences, chaos around the energy field, meaning like past energies coming in, or all this interferences if you are part of a certain group of people, or you are about to elevate, or you're about to go through a breakthrough. It's usually when the energy shakeup is very much happening, or there's a lot of chaotic energies going on, because they sense that your energy is leveling up and they're trying to pull you down or keep you down or distract you or confuse you or make you believe in the old ways or go back to your old ways, or old energies resurfacing in your mind. So you start to allow that energy to take up your mental space, which is going to affect your energy level, that you may feel certainly tired, or you're not trusting yourself or stuff like that. All these things could happen. So practice like spiritual hygiene, whatever that is, whether it's like taking a bath, purifying, grounding, or saging, however it is, working with crystals, energy cleansing basically, and discerning and staying in your energy. And another message that keeps coming is minding your own business at this time, because all these other destructive energies will try to pull you out of your place to mind their business, or confuse you to make you believe that their business is your mind. But you need to stay very discerning, especially throughout this next week is what is coming, until we wrap up this big retro period. The transformation, the huge transformation, the energy of Phoenix has been coming up big time. And you are to do that, to weave your own web now. You are out of the matrix, and to weave your own web, whatever that means for you. And for some reason, Dreamcatcher is coming. I don't know why. Dreamcatcher. Releasing any spirits. It has to do with evil spirits, negative spirits, toxic energies, whatever that is. Cleanse. Purify your space, physical space, your home, your inner state, your physical body, everything. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this video. And if you've been tuned in, resonating, appreciating my energy for delivering and sharing this, I also appreciate you for connecting and resonating, reciprocating with sincere heart. And with that, I'm sending you lots of love. And even though I share a lot of things, take, whatever that only resonates with you. That's what you need in divine timing. So I hope this helped, and I'll see you in my other videos. Bye.